Sometimes one moment changes everything. One heartbeat, one mistake, one whisper. And suddenly, the person who once healed everyone's pain finds herself fighting to heal her own. In Heartland Season 19, Episode 5, Amy Fleming faces a test that shakes not only her career, but also the very soul of who she is. The episode reminds us that even the strongest hearts can break when life takes away the things they love most: their purpose, their hope, and their horse. For years, Amy has stood as the calm in the storm, the girl who could understand horses better than anyone else. But this time, the storm is coming for her. What begins as a dream assignment, working with a champion horse, turns into her worst nightmare. The same hands that once brought life and confidence to animals are suddenly accused of neglect, and the same people who once trusted her now turn their backs. It's not just another episode of Heartland. It's a reminder of how fragile trust can be, and how even good people can be brought to their knees by one twist of fate. And yet, as we watch her story unfold, we realize something powerful. Sometimes you must lose everything to remember who you are. The morning at Heartland started like a dream. The kind of morning that made Amy believe everything was finally falling into place. The sun rested gently over the ranch, painting the sky with gold. The horses in the pasture moved freely, their hooves echoing the heartbeat of the land. Amy stood near the fence, the smell of hay and the soft whinny of Spartan, bringing a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. For a moment, it seemed like the world was finally giving her a break. This was no ordinary day. Today, Amy had a new challenge, one that carried the weight of her career. A world champion's horse had been brought to her for help. The animal was known across the country, famous for its power, beauty, and fierce spirit, but recently it had lost its confidence. Its movements had become stiff, its eyes uncertain, its soul disconnected. The Olympian who owned the horse had turned to Amy, trusting her reputation as the miracle girl of Heartland. And though Amy smiled politely, inside she was terrified, because every great reputation comes with an even greater risk, the risk of failure. As she brushed the horse's coat, her hands moved gently, almost rhythmically. Her voice was calm, whispering words of comfort that only horses could understand. This was Amy in her element, soft, steady, and endlessly patient. She studied every movement, every flick of the ear, every shift in breath. Slowly, she began to see a spark return to the animal's eyes. The champion inside it was waking up again, and Amy felt her own confidence rise along with it. For that brief moment, everything felt right. The field outside Heartland became a stage for redemption. The horse galloped freely under the morning sun, its mane flowing like silk, its spirit reborn. Amy watched with quiet pride, her heart swelling as she saw the Olympian's joy. The woman clapped, tears glimmering in her eyes. "You did it," she told Amy. "You brought him back." Those words meant everything. They were validation, proof that Amy still had the magic, that her mother's legacy lived through her hands. Even Spartan, watching from his paddock, seemed to nod approvingly, as if sharing her triumph. But what Amy didn't know was that this peaceful morning was only a calm before the storm. The kind of calm that fools you into thinking you're safe. Because fate was already moving quietly in the background, setting the stage for something that would test every ounce of her strength. That night, the air changed. The temperature dropped, and the wind carried an unease across the ranch. Amy woke suddenly hearing a sound that didn't belong. A weak, desperate cry coming from the barn. She rushed out, her boots hitting the cold dirt, her heart pounding faster than her steps. Inside the barn, Spartan was trembling, sweat shining on his coat, his breathing shallow and uneven. Amy froze for a second, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes were seeing. Spartan, her partner, her best friend, her link to Ty, was in pain. Real pain. Her hands shook as she called for help, her voice breaking. "Spartan, stay with me. Please, just stay with me." It felt like déjà vu. Memories of losing Ty, of standing helpless as the world took away the people she loved most, flashed before her eyes. The vet's arrival blurred into noise. Words like infection, collapse, and possible organ failure echoed in her head, but Amy barely heard them. All she could do was hold Spartan's head close and whisper, "You're going to be okay." Because if he wasn't, she didn't know who she'd be anymore. Hours passed. The barn lights burned through the night, turning the darkness into a painful reminder of how fragile everything could be. Amy didn't move. She didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She just watched over Spartan, her hands resting on his side, feeling his slow, uneven breaths. For the first time in years, fear truly took hold of her heart. Not the kind of fear that comes and goes, but the kind that roots itself deep inside and won't let go. By morning, Spartan's condition stabilized, but Amy's mind didn't. The worry, the exhaustion, the guilt, and it all lingered. She told herself it was over, that everything was fine. But deep down, she knew something was shifting. Life at Heartland had always been unpredictable, but this felt different. It felt like the universe was warning her that something much bigger was coming. Something she couldn't control, and just when she thought the worst was over, another blow would strike. One that would threaten not only her horse, but her entire reputation. Because in Heartland, peace never lasts long. It only gives you enough time to breathe before it takes your breath away again. The moment Spartan's legs gave out, the entire world seemed to stop. Amy's breath caught in her throat as the sound of his heavy body hitting the ground echoed through the quiet barn. For years, she had seen horses fall, injured, frightened, or sick, but seeing Spartan like this was different. This wasn't just any horse. This was her family. Spartan had carried her through grief, carried her through storms, and carried her through love. He was a living memory of Ty, a symbol of every moment they had shared. And now, as she knelt beside him, fear wrapped around her like ice. Her hands trembled as she reached out, brushing the sweat from his neck. His breathing was uneven, shallow, and desperate. "Come on, buddy," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You've been through worse. You can do this." But even as she spoke, she could feel his weakness, the way his muscles shivered under her touch. Amy could fix broken horses. She could bring back trust, rebuild spirits, and heal pain, but right now she didn't know how to fix this. And that terrified her more than anything. When the vet arrived, Amy stepped back, her heart pounding in her ears. Every second felt like an hour. She watched in silence as they checked his vitals, took samples, and whispered words she could barely comprehend. Dehydration. Possible infection. Fatigue, the vet murmured, but all Amy heard was the ticking of the clock. Each second meant Spartan was still fighting. Each minute meant he was still alive. As dawn broke, a pale light crept through the barn windows, revealing Amy's tear-streaked face. Her clothes were covered in hay and dirt, but she didn't care. Her world had narrowed down to one single heartbeat, Spartan's. When he finally lifted his head, just slightly, Amy exhaled for the first time in hours. Relief washed over her, but it was mixed with fear. What if this was just the beginning? For the next few days, Amy stayed by Spartan's side, refusing to leave the barn. She barely ate, barely spoke. Every small improvement gave her hope. Every stumble broke her all over again. The family worried, but they knew better than to pull her away. Jack visited every morning, bringing her coffee and quiet reassurance. "He's a fighter, Amy," he said softly. "Just like you." But Amy couldn't shake the dread that something larger was at play, something beyond her understanding. And she was right. Just when Spartan seemed to be recovering, another call came in. The Olympian's horse, the one Amy had just healed, had fallen ill too. It was as if fate was mocking her. The very horse she had helped regain its confidence was now lying weak, its future uncertain. The timing couldn't be worse. Word spread quickly, too quickly. Whispers started circulating among the horse owners in Hudson. Amy Fleming's lost her touch. 2 horses in her care, both sick? Maybe she's overworking them. It didn't take long before those whispers grew into something darker. The Olympian herself returned to Heartland, her expression tight with anger and fear. "What did you do to my horse, Amy?" she demanded. Amy froze. She had no answer, no explanation that made sense. She hadn't done anything wrong, at least not that she knew of. But in moments like this, the truth doesn't matter. Only perception does. "I didn't do anything," Amy said softly, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. "I treated your horse with care, just like I always do." The Olympian's tone hardened. "Then how do you explain this? He was fine when he left your care, and now he's on the verge of collapse. This isn't coincidence, Amy. This is negligence." The words hit her like a slap. Negligence. It was the one accusation that could destroy everything she'd built. Heartland's reputation had survived for generations because of trust. Trust between people and their animals. trust between Amy and the community. And now that trust was breaking apart in front of her eyes. Jack tried to defend her, stepping in with his calm authority. "Now hold on," he said. "Amy's the best horse trainer in Alberta. There's got to be another explanation." But the damage was already done. The Olympians' anger wasn't just personal. It was public. By the end of the day, the news had spread like wildfire across Hudson and beyond. Social media posts, gossip, and messages flooded in, some expressing shock, others judgment. Amy sat alone that night, staring at her phone, scrolling through comments she didn't want to read. Maybe she's not the miracle worker after all. Guess even Heartland has bad luck now. Poor horses, they deserve better. Each word cut deeper than the last. She wanted to fight back, to scream the truth, but she didn't even know what the truth was anymore. What if it really was her fault? What if she missed something? By morning, her phone rang again, this time with cancellations. Clients who had booked weeks in advance suddenly backed out. "Sorry, Amy," one said. "It's just, with what happened, we can't take the risk." Another text arrived minutes later. "We'll find someone else for now." Within hours, her schedule was empty. The stable that once buzzed with life and trust now echoed with silence. Amy walked through the barn in disbelief. Every stall she passed reminded her of a horse she'd once helped, a story she'd once healed. But now, all those victories felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. Even Spartan, still recovering, seemed to sense her sadness. His eyes followed her every move, soft and concerned. "I'm okay," she whispered, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "We'll get through this." But as she turned away, her expression crumbled. For the first time, Amy Fleming, the girl who healed horses and hearts, had no idea how to heal herself. That night, she sat outside under the open sky, staring at the stars that used to bring her peace. She thought of her mother, of Ty, of all the people who once believed in her without question. "What would you tell me now?" she whispered to the wind. The silence that followed felt heavier than words. Then something strange happened. As Amy retraced the events of the past few days in her mind, a single memory flashed before her. Nathan's sister. She remembered seeing her at Marion's grave, her cold words, her apology later that day. She remembered how the woman had touched the horses, both Spartan and the Olympians, in a way that didn't seem right. At the time, Amy thought nothing of it. But now it all seemed connected, her pulse quickened. Could it be possible? Could Nathan's sister have done something? The idea sounded absurd, but Amy couldn't shake it. The woman had a history, one filled with lies, manipulation, and selfish schemes. It wouldn't be the first time she tried to bring someone down for her own gain. Amy's instincts, the same instincts that helped her understand horses, screamed that something was wrong. Still, she knew she couldn't say anything without proof. Jack would call it paranoia. Nathan would defend his sister. And the town? They'd think Amy was just making excuses. So she stayed silent, her mind spinning with doubt and anger. As the night deepened, she made herself a promise. She would find the truth, no matter what it took. Because this wasn't just about her career anymore. This was about justice, for Spartan, for the Olympian's horse, and for herself. But deep down, Amy also knew the cost. If she was right and Nathan's sister really was behind this, then exposing her would destroy Nathan. And for Amy, that meant losing the one person who had just started to make her heart believe in love again. Still, as she looked back toward the barn and saw Spartan resting peacefully, Amy whispered, "For you, I'll do it. For all of them, I'll find out what really happened." And just like that, the calm girl from Heartland, the healer, the dreamer, the believer, turned into something new. A fighter, because this time Amy wasn't just saving horses. She was fighting to save her name, her truth, and her heart. There are moments when silence hurts more than any words ever could. After the chaos faded, Heartland fell eerily quiet. The once busy ranch that had echoed with laughter, hooves, and voices now stood still, like time itself had stopped. Even the wind seemed hesitant to move through the trees, as if afraid to disturb the fragile calm that hung over the land. Amy sat in the barn doorway, staring out into the open fields, feeling smaller than she ever had before. For the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if she still belonged here. Everywhere she looked, there were reminders of what she had lost. Not in material things, but in trust, in faith, in purpose. The barn that once felt like home now felt like a stranger's place. The scent of hay, once comforting, now stung like guilt. And Spartan, her constant companion, looked at her with eyes that carried questions she couldn't answer. She used to believe that as long as she had her horses, she could face anything. But now even that belief felt shaky, uncertain, fragile. Word had spread faster than wildfire. Within just a day, Amy's name, once spoken with admiration, was now being whispered with doubt. Horse owners who had once lined up for her help suddenly avoided her calls. Messages that used to start with, "Can you help my horse?" now ended with, "Maybe later." It was as if all the years she had spent building her reputation vanished overnight. Inside the house, the tension was thick. Jack tried to stay strong for her, but even his voice held worry. "You've got to hold your head up, Amy," he told her. "This'll blow over. People just need time." But Amy didn't believe that. She'd seen how quickly people forget kindness when fear takes over. "What if it doesn't blow over, Grandpa?" she asked softly. "What if this time it's really over for me?" Jack didn't have an answer. He just looked at her, his weathered face full of love and helplessness. "Then you do what you always do," he said. "You fight." But fighting meant facing people, and that was the last thing Amy wanted. Every time she stepped into town, she could feel the eyes on her. At Maggie's, conversations would stop when she walked in. Friends she had known for years suddenly looked uncomfortable. "It's just gossip," she told herself, but deep down, she knew gossip was powerful. It shapes truth. It changes how people see you. The Olympian's accusations still hung in the air like a storm that refused to pass. No matter how many times Amy replayed the events in her mind, she couldn't find the missing piece, the proof that would clear her name. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with a piece that someone had stolen. And the worst part was, she couldn't even defend herself properly. Every explanation she gave sounded like an excuse. Every denial felt weak. Even Lou, who always tried to stay logical, had her doubts. One evening, she said quietly, "Amy, maybe you've been taking on too much. Maybe it's time to rest." Amy looked up, startled. "You think this is my fault?" she asked, her voice trembling. Lou hesitated. "No, I just think maybe it's time to slow down. You've been through a lot." But Amy heard the unspoken part. Lou didn't want to say it out loud, but even she was wondering, had Amy missed something? Had she made a mistake? That night, Amy sat alone in the barn again, listening to the quiet hum of the crickets. Her eyes were tired, red from crying. "Maybe they're right," she whispered to herself. "Maybe I'm not who I used to be." She looked at Spartan, resting peacefully, and remembered how it used to feel. The connection, the trust, the unspoken language that only they shared. She had built her entire life around that bond, and now it felt like it was slipping away. Memories began to flood her mind. Her mother, Marion, smiling beside a young Amy as they worked together. Ty standing beside her during long nights in the barn. The first horse she ever healed. The joy in their eyes when they trusted her again. Every memory was a reminder of why she did this, and how far she had fallen from that purpose. But in that sea of sadness, a new thought began to surface. Maybe this wasn't about mistakes. Maybe it was about something deeper, something deliberate. She remembered the strange sequence of events. Nathan's sister showing up at the grave, the apology that felt too sudden, the way she touched the horses before leaving. The timing, the coincidence, it all felt wrong. Amy's instincts were rarely wrong when it came to animals, and this time, her gut told her she was being set up. Still, without proof, she had nothing. And no one wanted to hear theories that involved Nathan's family. When she tried to talk to Jack about it, he sighed. "Amy, I know you're upset, but don't start seeing ghosts where there aren't any." His words were kind but dismissive. It hurt more than anger would have, because Jack had always believed her, always. And now even he doubted her judgment. She tried Nathan next, but when she saw him, her courage faltered. He looked so genuine, so caring, that she couldn't bring herself to accuse his sister. "How's Spartan?" he asked, concern in his eyes. "Better," she replied softly. "Thanks for asking." There was a long pause between them, a silence heavy with things unsaid. Amy wanted to tell him everything, but the fear of breaking his trust stopped her. If she was wrong, she'd destroy whatever was left of their fragile relationship. If she was right, she'd destroy him, so she kept quiet, even as the truth burned inside her. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of her silence grew heavier. She threw herself into small chores, pretending things were normal. Feeding horses, fixing fences, brushing Spartan, all the things that used to bring her peace now just kept her from falling apart. The only person who truly seemed to understand her pain was Lindy. Her daughter's small voice one evening broke through Amy's fog of sadness. "Mommy," Lindy said softly. "Why are you sad?" Amy forced a smile. "I'm just tired, sweetheart." "Did someone hurt Spartan?" Lindy asked, frowning. Amy froze for a moment, surprised. "Why do you ask that?" "I heard Aunt Lou talking. She said people were mean to you because Spartan got sick. But it's not your fault, right?" Amy's throat tightened. "No, baby. It's not my fault." Lindy nodded firmly, the way only a child could when they believed something with all their heart. "Then don't cry anymore. You always fix things, Mommy. You'll fix this too." It was a simple statement, but it hit Amy like a revelation. Out of the mouths of children comes truth. Maybe Lindy was right. Maybe Amy could fix this, not by hiding, not by apologizing for something she didn't do, but by finding the truth. That night, Amy stood outside, looking up at the stars again. The same stars that had watched over her since the beginning, through joy, loss, love, and pain. They seemed distant but constant, like silent witnesses to her life. "If you're out there, Ty," she whispered, "I need your strength right now. I need to remember who I am." The wind stirred softly, carrying the scent of rain. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the faint sound of horses running, wild, free, unbroken. And for the first time in weeks, Amy felt something awaken inside her. Not peace, not relief, but resolve. She realized that she could either let the world write her story, or she could take back the pen and write it herself. The next morning, Amy woke up with a clarity she hadn't felt since this nightmare began. The sadness was still there, but beneath it burned a quiet determination. She would find proof. She would uncover what really happened. And when she did, she would rebuild her name from the ashes, because Amy Fleming wasn't done. Not yet, and Heartland, the home that had seen her rise, break, and heal, would soon see her fight back. Sometimes the truth doesn't come like a thunderclap. It comes quietly, like a whisper in the dark. It sneaks up on you when you least expect it, when your guard is down, when you've almost accepted defeat. That's how it came to Amy. Not in one moment, but in pieces, scattered fragments of something bigger, darker, and far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. It started one morning when Amy was in the barn, cleaning Spartan's stall. The world outside was still wrapped in early dawn light, that cold, pale blue before sunrise. She heard the crunch of footsteps outside, slow and careful. "Jack!" she called out, expecting to see him. But no answer came. The steps stopped, and for a long moment, all she could hear was Spartan's quiet breathing. When she stepped outside, there was no one there, only the faint smell of perfume on the breeze, floral but sharp, the same scent Nathan's sister wore. Her heart began to pound. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was just paranoid. But deep down, Amy knew the feeling of danger. She had learned to read horses, to see fear before it showed, to sense tension before it broke. And now she felt it all around her. Later that day, while going through old footage from the barn's new security cameras, ones Lou had installed after the incident, Amy noticed something strange. The footage from the night before the Olympic horse fell ill had a 2-hour gap. No video, no explanation. Just static, then darkness. She froze, staring at the screen. 2 hours. Enough time for anything to happen. Enough time for someone to do something they shouldn't. She played the surrounding clips over and over again, and then something caught her eye. A shadow at the edge of the frame, barely visible. A figure walking toward the stables. The gait was light, deliberate. Not Jack, not Lou, not anyone from the ranch. Her hands trembled as she paused the video, zoomed in, and adjusted the brightness. The figure was wearing a dark coat, hair tied back. She couldn't see the face clearly, but the outline, the movement, it was familiar. Too familiar. Nathan's sister. The name hit her like a jolt of electricity. Her chest tightened. Her mind spun. Why would she be there that late at night? Why would she come back after that visit to the grave, after that strangely timed apology? None of it made sense, unless the apology wasn't real. Unless it was part of something much worse, Amy's instincts screamed for her to confront her. But this wasn't the kind of fight she could walk into blindly. She needed proof, undeniable, clear proof. So she kept quiet and started watching. Over the next few days, Amy noticed more things that didn't add up. The medicine bottles she'd used for Spartan, one was missing, and another was replaced with an older label. The feed bags near the barn had been shifted. Even the locks on the stable doors felt tampered with. Tiny details, but Amy's sharp eye caught them all. She started writing everything down: times, names, scents, sounds. A secret journal of suspicions that she kept hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the barn. At night, she'd reread her notes, looking for patterns. Each entry felt like a step closer to the truth, but the more she uncovered, the more isolated she felt. She couldn't tell Jack. He'd think she was overreacting. She couldn't tell Lou. She'd try to handle it through proper channels, which might tip off whoever was behind it. And she couldn't tell Nathan, not yet. Because if she was right, his family was at the center of it. The pressure started to build. Her nights grew restless, her days heavy with unease. Even the horses sensed it. They grew skittish, eyes darting toward the tree line whenever a shadow moved. The ranch, once a place of peace, had turned into a place of watching and waiting. Then one evening, as Amy was checking on Spartan, she heard the distant sound of a truck pulling into the drive. Headlights swept across the barn walls and a voice called out, "Amy, you in there?" It was Nathan. Her heart jumped. She wasn't ready for this. She quickly hid the journal, brushed off her hands, and stepped outside, forcing a smile. "Hey, you're here late." He smiled back, but there was tension in his eyes. "Yeah, I just wanted to check on Spartan." "Make sure everything's okay," Amy nodded. "He's doing better?" They walked into the barn together, the air between them thick with unspoken tension. Nathan ran his hand gently along Spartan's neck, his touch calm, practiced. "He's a strong one," he said softly. "You've done good work, Amy. Don't let the rumors get to you." His words should have comforted her, but they didn't. Instead, they made her skin crawl. There was something about the way he said it, the way his eyes lingered on her, not Spartan. It felt rehearsed, controlled. Then he added, "You know, my sister still feels terrible about what happened." She didn't mean to cause trouble that day, Amy froze. She hadn't mentioned that visit to anyone. Not Jack, not Lou, not even Lindy. So how did Nathan know? Her voice was steady when she asked, "Who told you she came by?" He blinked, caught off guard. "She did, of course. She tells me everything." Amy smiled faintly. "Right, of course she does." Inside, her mind was racing. She needed to keep him talking, to see if he'd slip again. "It's funny," she said, pretending to be casual, "because I never told anyone she came. And I checked the ranch cameras that day. I didn't see her car." For the briefest moment, something changed in Nathan's expression. A flicker of surprise, then control. "She probably parked down the road," he said quickly. "You know how she is. She hates attention." "Right," Amy said, her voice quiet but firm. "She really does." When Nathan left that night, Amy didn't go back to sleep. She stayed up, replaying every second of their conversation in her head. There was something there, a crack in his calm surface. He was hiding something, and if he knew about the missing footage, he might also know she was getting close. The next morning, Amy went to town to talk to one person she trusted outside the ranch, Scott. He'd been with her through every loss, every lesson. He was more than a vet. He was family. She showed him the footage, the gaps, the strange signs around the barn. Scott frowned deeply. "This doesn't look accidental, Amy," he said. "Someone tampered with your system. Whoever it was knew what they were doing." "Could it make a horse sick?" Amy asked, voice trembling. Scott nodded slowly. "If they swapped out medication or feed, yes. Especially something subtle. It wouldn't show up right away." "It would look like natural illness," Amy's stomach turned. "Then they didn't just want to ruin my name," she whispered. "They wanted to destroy me." Scott looked at her gravely. "You need to tell the police." But Amy shook her head. "Not yet. Not until I know exactly who it is." She left the clinic with a new fire burning in her chest. She wasn't just going to clear her name. She was going to expose whoever had done this. And deep down, she knew this was bigger than just jealousy or revenge. It was personal. That night, as she reviewed the footage again, she noticed something new, a reflection in the stable mirror. A flash of a face as the shadow moved. She paused, zoomed in, and her heart nearly stopped. It wasn't Nathan's sister. It was Nathan himself. The truth hit her like a lightning strike. Nathan, the man who had claimed to believe in her. The man who had stood by her when everyone else turned away. He was the one who had